This audio program by Radio AI is generated using artificial intelligence technologies. The voices you hear in this program are synthetic, and the thoughts they express are shaped through artificial intelligence-driven reasoning and iterative refinement.
Welcome to Radio AI, where we embark on a deep dive into ideas that shape our understanding. Today we're tackling a question that, well, it touches pretty much everyone. Are grades truly the best way to measure academic ability?
Yeah, that's a big one.
We're going to unpack what the research tells us and explore the surprising complexities beneath those simple letters and numbers you've probably received your entire life.
Exactly. Our mission here is to really get into the nuances of this long-standing debate and hopefully help you see why this discussion matters, why it's not just academic talk.
Right, so let's start there. When we even talk about grades, what are we actually measuring? Is it really ability? Because, the research is pretty eye-opening.
It absolutely is. Data from educational psychology paints a fascinating picture. Grades, well, they correlate somewhere between, say, 0.4 and 0.6 with things like standardized test scores or persistence in higher education.
Okay, 0.4 to 0.6. What does that actually mean, though, in practical terms?
Well, it means there's some connection, but it's not incredibly strong. A 0.6 correlation, for instance, means grades explain less than half the variation we see in those outcomes. And then for attributes like critical thinking or genuine creativity, ethical reasoning...
The stuff we often say we value most.
Precisely. Those correlations drop significantly, often below 0.3. So it really suggests a big chunk of what we might call ability just isn't being captured by that letter or number.
Wow, below 0.3.
Yeah.
That's not strong at all. And this is where it gets really interesting, right? The confounding variables.
Exactly. Think about socioeconomic background, the quality of school someone attended before, access to tutors, or even just reliable internet.
Yeah. Like, imagine two students, maybe equally bright, truly, but one has all the resources, supportive home environment, tutors. The other might be just as smart, but is working part-time, maybe doesn't have great resources.
Right. Their innate ability could be similar, but their grades might tell completely different stories because of these external factors that aren't really about their personal academic capability.
It complicates the picture hugely.
It does. Now, that's not to say grades are useless. They definitely have advantages. They offer a standardized metric, supposedly for comparison. They're efficient, administratively speaking.
Quick to process.
Quick to process, yeah. And they can be motivational for some students. Plus, they serve as a kind of shared language for admissions, for hiring.
A common reference point.
Mm-hmm. And they provide structured feedback within, established norms.
But that simplicity, it feels like it can hide a lot, too. I mean, I remember in school, sometimes you could cram for a test and get an A, but did you really understand it a month later?
That's a classic example. Two students might get the same mark, but one has deep conceptual understanding, real problem-solving flexibility, and the other, well, maybe they just figured out how to game that particular test.
Yeah, just played the game. And doesn't that focus on testing sometimes penalize different ways of thinking? Like maybe someone's brilliant in a team or thinks outside the box, but the test doesn't measure that.
Absolutely. It often favors certain learning style or expressions of knowledge over others. What's interesting, though, is seeing how some fields handle this, especially highly regulated ones, like medicine or engineering.
Oh, yeah. How so?
They often use a mix. So yes, they have high-stakes standardized exams, licensing tests, things like that. But they combine those with really structured, practical assessments.
Like observing a doctor with a patient.
Exactly. Or evaluating an engineering team on a complex project. They look at communication, adaptability, teamwork under real-world or simulated real-world conditions. It's a kind of hybrid approach.
Trying to get both comparability and that broader competence. Makes sense. So if grades aren't the whole picture, what are the alternatives people are exploring?
Well, there's a growing interest in things like narrative evaluations. Instead of just a letter, you get a detailed paragraph about your strengths, your insights, areas for growth.
More personalized feedback.
Much more. Or portfolio reviews, where students actually show their work. Imagine showcasing a community research project you designed and maybe even started. That shows initiative, ethical thinking, things a multiple choice test just can't touch.
And competency-based assessments too, right? Focusing on skills.
Yes, focusing on demonstrating specific skills or competencies rather than just accumulating course credits based on time and grades.
But these alternatives, they must have their own challenges. They can't be perfect either.
Oh, definitely not. They aren't without pitfalls. A portfolio, for example, if it's not structured well, might end up emphasizing flashy presentation over real substance.
Style over substance.
Right. And narrative evaluations, unfortunately, can sometimes reflect the evaluator's unconscious biases. Plus, there's the equity issue, access to the technology or mentorship needed to build a great portfolio, for instance.
So systemic inequalities can still play a role.
They can. But the encouraging part is that many of these challenges can be addressed. You can create standardized frameworks or rubrics for portfolios and narratives to reduce bias, or provide subsidized access to tech and support. It takes deliberate effort.
So looking ahead then, what's the path forward? It sounds like a balancing act.
It really is. The central challenge seems to be designing systems that give us that clarity, comparability we need for certain decisions.
Like admissions or hiring.
Exactly. But also capture the depth and richness of diverse skills and understanding. That's the tricky part.
So maybe these hybrid models you mentioned are key.
I think they hold a lot of promise. You could combine, say, numeric grades for foundational knowledge with structured qualitative feedback, maybe discipline-specific indicators, or even verifiable skill certifications like digital badges.
But wouldn't that get incredibly complicated and expensive?
It could, absolutely. That's a valid concern. To make it work, you'd need really clear shared rubrics, probably robust digital platforms to manage it all. And the cost, yeah, that's real. But maybe you address that through phased pilot programs. Start small, learn, adapt.
Okay. So as we wrap this up, it feels like the core question isn't simply if grades are good or bad. It's more about what do we actually want to measure? What capabilities do we truly value?
Precisely. And how do we make sure our assessment systems genuinely reflect those values?
It's about creating evaluation that really helps learning and growth, not just sorting people.
That's the goal, I think. Designing evaluation that serves learning.
Well, thank you for joining us on Radio AI for this deep dive. We hope this exploration has given you some new insights, maybe some things to think about regarding how we measure academic ability.
Hope it sparks some thoughts.
Feel free to share your own thoughts or reflections down in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. Hope to have you with us again on Radio AI. Until next time.